Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today, I'm going to be blowing your mind with an idea that is super renegade, except, of course, to the women that are like, yeah, no fucking shit. But, you know, to a lot of people, which is that chore play, which is the cute little term for doing more chores to get your wife to have sex with you, does actually work for a subset of women. And we will be talking about who those women are and why it works for them, and who the women are for whom this does nothing and why it doesn't work for them. And before we do that, please do subscribe, because my most recent subscriber episodes are pretty great. I got the one on the successful parents and why your kids don't empathize with you, and I have the one on responsive desire and why that doesn't how that is different from zero desire. And then I'm going to have whatever one I do next. So that should be good too. I'm sure we have close to 100 by now. So keep on subscribing. Anyway, so there are plenty of women that Choreplay works for. And I'll tell you who they are. They're younger women and or higher libido women, which often, overlaps quite a bit, because as people frequently forget in this age of life hacks, there's no life hack against aging, and a younger organism has a higher sex drive in all mammalian species. That's just the fucking way it works. So when I see women in their 30s, they're real different than women in their 40s, who are real different than women in their 50s. And while high libido can help, age helps more. So there's a lot of guys in their 30s that are like screwing themselves out of a good sex life by not listening to what their wives say, which is do more shit around the house. And it really does work for women who are a few things. So you need a few caveats: relatively average or high libido, and who love their husband. I mean, this is really the thing, and they're not sex negative. So if you have a woman, and I see many women like this, genuinely, they like sex, they wish they had more energy, but the guy just doesn't understand how much shit that she's doing, and she is younger. 30s is younger. I'm 41, so 30s is younger. Or even younger. Women who are even younger or even less confident. So they somehow come to me with like this question: how do I tell him I need more help? Whereas women in their 40s, 50s are like, get up, I need your help. But women in their 30s and 20s are like, I don't know, is there some way I'm supposed to tell him to do more stuff? It's like, yeah, you just kind of tell him. But anyway, so women in their 30s or 20s, certainly, if they have children, are overwhelmed and exhausted, but their bodies are still in make a baby mode, unless they have real negative views about sex or they are actively super low libido, they still have most of their sex hormones going on. They still look pretty good, right? I mean, I've read somewhere the most beautiful age for a woman is 32. So be that as it may, I'm sure this was somehow remiss or un-PC to mention, but either way, I don't know, I could see it. Seems right. And so, they still got all their hormones. They still have these, desires in them to at least make a baby, and they still get attracted to men, even including their husbands. And, it's really your game to lose then by being selfish and lazy. So if you sit around and watch the game all Sunday, is she going to want to have sex with you? No. I'll give you a good rule to live by. You can always lower a woman's libido. You can't always raise it, but you can always lower it. So a woman can start with a real high libido. A lot of these women in their 30s, they masturbate, they still have a high sex drive. But when they don't? When they look at their husband sitting on his ass. And when they look at their husband sitting on his ass, they would rather masturbate than be with him, because they feel so alone and really just angry because they're exhausted. Women can't get sexually excited when they're exhausted or stressed, as I've told you. And so many of these guys are just completely striking out because they don't believe that a woman could possibly require this much help, as their wife does, because their mother did not require help from the father. father. Well, your mother was in a different era, and you don't know what your parents' sex life was like, So, I mean, between those two things, let's just put it to rest and say that, as I've said in previous podcasts, when she's up, you should be up. If she's doing something, you should be doing something. This alone would get more young guys in healthy marriages, which I do have many 30-something-year-old male listeners whose wives don't hate them yet. Just kidding. May never hate you, hopefully. And, those guys could get a hell of a lot more frequent sex if they just got off their ass and did a lot more without figuring about how they don't want to, because who cares? What you want to long term is to be in a happy marriage with a woman who loves you and to get laid. So all of those things for a young man in a marriage that she already loves you but feels just resentment that you can be selfish, which is a large percent of people in the world. If you get off your ass and you knock it out of the park as a dad, as a teammate, as a project manager in the home, then you will be getting laid more. Because women of that age still get a lot of self-esteem out of having a good sex life. It's even something they'll mention sometimes, to a friend or something. They like it. They like the idea of it, and they have more sex drive to go around. Now, what happens when the woman hits her 40s, her hormones start to go down? She also doesn't need more physical help. So at this point, it's become more principle. When she has little kids, it's not principle. She literally feels like she's struggling every day, especially if she tends toward anxiety or depression. She feels completely overwhelmed by the sheer force of those little bodies that need to be kept alive. When the woman is in her 40s, usually by this point, the kids are a little bit older. And, so she doesn't need as much practical help. By now, it's principle. Now she's just mad at you. Now she's like, why do I have to do all this shit that you don't do? So to the guys who are sitting on the couch, it's become an issue where she looks down on you and she thinks, man, you're lazy. And that is certainly not going to help spur her to any heights of desire. In fact, it's easy for her to ignore her desire at this point if she has any, because it's less desire overall. And less at 50s, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So for women that have a positive view towards sex, that still have any desire at all, and that love you and want to work on the marriage, chores will certainly help you get laid. Also, very practically speaking, the less she has to do, the more time she has to take a bath and relax and go watch TV or whatever gets her in the mood and makes her feel like a woman instead of a mom. Because you can't be sexy and feel like a mom. That's just not a thing. So who are all of the guys then that say Choreplay does nothing? The wives are negative about sex, they don't have any desire, and they don't really feel committed to you or like you. It's a bad scene altogether. So those women also need help. They also need help in the house. So they may be telling themselves somehow that if you did more chores, maybe they would want sex more. It's not like they're overtly lying. They think maybe it could work, but in reality, it doesn't work because the deepest level bottleneck is that they have zero sexual desire and negative attitude towards sex. So in those cases, chores are not going to help. Why should you do chores then? Because you're a person in the house. So obviously split the stuff because you're a human being and an adult. But in those cases, it's not going to lead to more sex. So a lot of guys, they're trying to make sense of their lives, just like a lot of women generalize, and I have podcasts about generalizing. So you don't want to get in this situation where you read on the internet that Choreplay doesn't work, and then you sit your ass down on the couch and figure that you're not going to get laid anyway, and then, tragedy of all tragedies, bitterest of ironies, you had one of the many women that would have responded to the goddamn chores. Now, I have a post about, and maybe a podcast, I don't remember which is which, about how my male clients are doing more housework than ever before, but they're not getting laid anymore. Why is this usually the case? Well, A, standards have changed. It's kind of baseline for a guy to do shit where it didn't used to be. But also most of these guys then, I've never had a guy that comes in and it's like, only due to chores. There's always like some other stuff. So even with the young women that have their sex drive and everything, if they can get to a place of having to go to couples counseling, it's not all about the chores. It's not, and by the time I see people, it's all about the chores. But Or, sorry, it's about more than the chores. But there are people existing in the world, and most people don't go to couples counseling. So there are plenty of happily married people where the guy isn't getting laid enough. And that is frequently because she has just too much shit to do. And if you did some of it, she would get laid more. It's like it's a thing. There's plenty of high libido women, because what did I just tell you? Remember the mantra that you now know. You can always lower a woman's libido. You can't always raise it. But one good way to lower it is by sitting down on your ass and not doing anything. And so a lot of people who are high libido women are going to be like, no, I don't feel like having sex. And it's not withholding, as I've explained numerous times. It's because she doesn't have the desire. Who the hell would have the desire when they've just been wiping up a bunch of baby spit and washing the bottles, and then on top of it, they got a vacuum and you're watching television? Oh my God, I can't imagine something that would be more demoralizing and remove the sex drive. Even a high libido woman will not want to have sex under those situations. So what you want to do is think, it's possible that I may have a higher libido woman than I think, but I'm just sitting on my ass too much. And this will resonate for some guys. Of course, some workhorse guys are like, I do everything around the house and she still doesn't have sex with me. In which case, I just did an episode about this. If you're in a situation where you're fighting all the time and she does nothing and you don't have sex, this frequently means that there's different sorts of deeper level issues at play. But that was in the one about narcissist borderline. So, but in the usual situation, the woman wants to have a romantic life. In a healthy marriage, a woman who's positive about sex, where you had a good sex life before kids, a good one. Even when you look back and you look for red flags, there weren't any. She was open-minded. She liked having sex. She had preferences. She masturbated. She did all these things, right? But now she's fucking tired. And if the main problem is that she's tired and she thinks that you're selfish, which is a problem for many women, then get up and do stuff. This is the sort of woman where chore play will work. It won't work because she gets turned on by you doing the chores. In that case, chore play never works. Like there's a funny book, Porn for Women, and it shows man like vacuuming. Of course, it's like super hot man and all things like this. It's not just this one picture, but it's like he's vacuuming and he says something like, I like to do these things before I'm asked. And it's funny because like how that would be a turn on. But it wouldn't be a turn on. Seeing a man vacuum is not a turn on. Seeing a man vacuum is a relief. And a relief allows you to get into the headspace where you're relaxed. And from there, you could get turned on. And remember what I taught you, all these high libido women within monogamy have responsive desire. 90% of them, even the young ones, right? Unless they're ovulating. So, they have responsive desire, so they don't feel desire before they start to get in the mood before foreplay starts. Anyway, but I'll tell you, if you do the vacuuming and you do the dishes and you wipe up the kitchen and you put the babies to bed, what's she doing during that time? Her parasympathetic nervous system is activating. She's relaxed instead of the sympathetic nervous system, which is the one that releases adrenaline and cortisol, in which case she cannot get excited. Remember, women are not like men. Men can have sex in the middle of a battlefield. Women cannot. She's relaxed. And so then she could get in the headspace where she's willing to get into a mode where then she could have responsive desire by starting to make out with you, touch you, etc. You touch her. Her touch you, she may be too tired for, but she should try, etc. So, this is the thing. If you are a high libido woman, your libido can always be turned down by a man acting selfish. If you're a low libido woman, chore play ain't gonna help. Nothing's really gonna help except the stuff that I talk about, where you gotta try to get yourself into a different mind space where you are doing this as an act of service, an act of love, getting yourself as ready as you can possibly get for the flickerings of responsive desire, and working deeply and internally on your negative views towards sex, if any such exist, as well as looking at the biological side, including your time of the month, what medications you're on, whether you have untreated anxiety or depression, a trauma history. I've talked about all of these things. I even have a podcast called Other Reasons Your Libido May Be Low. That is like all the ones except monogamy and unhappy marriages. So anyway, the point is, and I speak as what would be considered a high libido woman, and your libido can always go down, but it stays at a good level when somebody is a teammate to you. When you feel, and it's not the same the whole month or anything like that, but it's there. And it can be taken down by the fact that you're really stressed out. But if somebody is really trying to help you by doing like all this stuff that stresses you out, then it kind of remains, you're aware of it there. You're not, it's not spontaneous desire within monogamy, but it's responsive desire. As I talked about, like, what is responsive desire? It was a podcast like, even high libido women have primarily responsive desire or don't have spontaneous desire or whatever. So speaking as a high libido woman, right? If my husband does more shit, which he does lots of shit all the time, does much more shit than I do around the house, which is part of the reason why people say, how can you be so prolific? Well, that's how I could be so prolific, is I'm not doing all the shit. In fact, I'm doing probably less than half of the work, which would be deemed shit. So, like the sweeping up from the animals, the care of the pets, like the cleaning stuff, sweeping, vacuuming. See, I don't even know what there is. And so I do certain stuff. Certainly I cook all of the meals and that sort of thing. And things are divided. But I'll tell you something. If things were not divided, this high libido woman would not be. And that's a situation that I've been in at other times in my life, right? So a high libido woman can always be transformed into a lower libido woman by feeling like she's alone in the world doing all of the shit. But a lot of men don't know that they're dealing with a high libido woman in the bitterest of ironies, as I said. They don't know the full capacity of the woman's libido because they're too busy complaining that they're not getting laid and being resentful and therefore not doing anything when she's literally saying, so you don't know which woman you're dealing with until you actually test her. So some women say, if you did more stuff around the house, I could get in the mood more. And they're bullshitting. They're not consciously bullshitting. They're subconsciously bullshitting. They're just kind of throwing anything at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's something they've heard in the media. It's something they've heard in the world. Oh, if he does more stuff, then you'll get in the mood. And they're hoping it's true, right? And so but for some women, it is true. Because taking away all that shit from their plate allows them to go to work, come home, do the stuff that they kind of get some sort of satisfaction from doing in one way or another, whether that's cooking, cleaning, dealing with the kids, whatever. So they certainly do some shit. I'd never met a mother yet that doesn't do anything. Wrong. There's some exceptions, but most of the time, normatively, they do things, for the children, but they don't do all the things. When they have to do all the things, the libido goes to the basement and it hides out and it's never to be seen again. So that is something to think about. It is possible that you are overgeneralizing, assuming that chore play doesn't work, and in the way that it's meant to sound like foreplay, it certainly doesn't work. You certainly need foreplay, real foreplay, etc. But you may have a woman that is just stressed out and would be higher libido, maybe not high libido, but average libido if you did more stuff. So it is something to think about and certainly something to try. And in a worst case scenario, what happens? What's the downside? You did more shit for your family? I mean, wow, that's so bad. No, it's not bad at all. All right. Hopefully this was useful to you guys, and I'll talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye.